my playing always gets so sloppy as soon as I speed up. Well, then you need a dedicated speed picking routine, and that's exactly what we're gonna go over today. A fantastic 20-minute speed picking routine. So grab your guitar and let's jump in. All right, like I said, this is a really excellent 20-minute practice routine that's all about getting us playing faster without the slop. All right, so the first half is going to be centered on turning on these little muscle fibers in our fingers, picking hand and fretting hand, syncing up picking hand and fretting hand, all with the focus on playing faster, doing that faster. And then the second half is going to be a functional application of that speed using shapes and patterns that we commonly see in our lead guitar lines, our fills, our guitar solos, whether that's solos we're learning or solos that we're trying to create. All right, so stick with me the entire time. I'm also going to give you a really great free resource that might blow your mind. So again, that's the incentive to stick with me the entire time and check out the entire routine. The first exercise, with that, let's jump in, is going to be on the G and B strings. Simple stuff, right? First thing we're getting into. So just the G and B strings, we're gonna hit this pattern. All right, this is what it's gonna sound like. All right, that's it. What I want you to do is set a 5-minute timer. So the first quarter of this routine is going to be just that pattern, alternate picking the entire time. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. A big thing with speed picking is fast is slow, slow is fast. So if you're doing this and you're feeling pretty good and you start speeding up and you start making mistakes, you're just reinforcing sloppy playing, okay? So what I want you to do with this routine is stick with it on the front end of all. If you really want to get great at, getting fast, playing faster and doing so in a clean manner, do this on the front end of your guitar playing sessions every single time you're going to play guitar for at least the next 4 weeks. I think 6 to 8 weeks, it will literally break and melt your brain how much improvement you see and feel if you stick with it. And if you do that, right, that, if you go with, 70 BPM, right, you set a metronome, you got to set a metronome on this, right? So if you set a 70 BPM metronome, that's going to turn into 75 in a few days, Before you know it, it's going to turn into 90, 95, right? If you continue to stick with it. Then it's going to turn into 100, 105, and all of a sudden you might be jumping into this session at a much faster pace than, day one. All right? You will be able to do this thing with the metronome. I'm just going to kind of blaze through this so that you can do it on your own. Click, 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 get into it. You will be able to sync up. But I do think sometimes, I've said this before, it can be helpful to baby step. All of us can sometimes need a little baby stepping through things, but just playing with the metronome and an exercise like this, I think is simple enough where you can just jump in and I don't need to show it to you with the metronome. I'm sorry if that is not something you're into or you're like, I don't think that's correct. That's how we're doing it today. So again. All right, there's a stamina, fatigue aspect to playing fast. So just trying to do that clean for 5 minutes is can be tough. All right. When day one, you do it in this section, move it around. All right. That's a nice way to keep it fresh, but there's also subtle differences. So playing that pattern on the, B and high E string starting on the first fret is different than playing it where we just played it, playing it on the D and G strings on the, 9th through 12th frets. is different as well. So, you know, each time you hit this first exercise, you know, move it around, right? Keep things fresh and just play with those subtle differences. You know, bigger spaces between the frets here, narrower frets up here. So just keep that in mind. But that's exercise 1. I've rambled too long on exercise 1. Exercise 2 is going to be the most basic dexterity warm-up that there is. We're literally just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? On the low E, and then just move up. And just like the last exercise, right, I'm keeping things between the 5th and 8th frets, all right? But, you know, on the next day, maybe you move it down, maybe you move it up. I would rather stay in one position and not have to focus on much more. We're gonna do that in just a second. I don't wanna focus on moving things around or going to this position and then going up here. I just want to turn everything on and get comfortable with playing faster and doing so in a clean manner, right? Like I said. So just like the first exercise, now you might be able to, you know, bump it up a little bit more, and all of a sudden, you're syncing up your hands in this way of playing faster. You're getting every finger involved, one after the other. You're maintaining this fluid pick, and now you're starting to bake faster picking into your system with really simple exercises. Just like the first exercise, 5-minute timer. If that is like hurting your soul, I promise you, if you focus up, you put a metronome on, you will, you know, this will go by quickly. You'll feel really good about this because you're going to be so locked in and focused that all of a sudden the time will fly by. If you start making errors, slow it up, right? So if you start speeding up, you're feeling good, you're just going to, again, reinforce sloppy playing. So even if you need to come all the way down here, to start, that's totally fine. You want to tune into some of those subtle things, how you hold your pick, how soft it is. You can't be choking your pick. You can't be choking the neck. You need to feel fluid, right? And this happens to all of us. You know, I'll be, you know, warming up, practicing. All of a sudden, I'm not looking at my hands. I'm thinking about, you know, some embarrassing thing I did in 3rd grade, and you mess up. So it's this kind of meditative state where you do need to lock in and think about what you're doing. And so if we keep things simple, we can get better at doing that and locking in. And then in the next exercises, we will start applying it to, like I said, more functional patterns and shapes. But those are the first 2 exercises. Really simple stuff. Don't overpick. Light, right? Don't jam on the, you know, frets. Don't squeeze the pick so much, and really make sure that everything is an alternate pick. So a lot of times, you know, you'll see a beginner, you know, more likely than, you know, an intermediate, you know, down, up, and then all of a sudden, well, I guess it'd be hard to do here, but, you know, on the first one or the next ones, you might find yourself wanting to restart in a different pattern, or, you know, maybe you double up on some down picks, you know, down, down, up or something, or down, down. It has to be fluid alternate picking. This, you know, exercise, just had that brain fart, will make it easy to do that, but coming up, you might lose track of your picking, so you want to go slow enough where you don't lose track, okay? Now we're getting into the good stuff, the fun stuff, but you will feel great just with that, right? If you only had 10 minutes and you just went over those 2 exercises for, you know, 6 to 8 weeks, I really do think you would be feeling a lot better with your ability to play fast. But this will put it into some functional shapes, all right? So what we're gonna do now is we are going to play with the pentatonic scale, and ultimately we want to move this all over the fretboard. To start, you might just be in one shape. So I just want to clarify that on the front end. You might not move it around everywhere yet, especially if you're not familiar with all the pentatonic shapes. But what I'm going to do is in the description, I'm going to give you a free PDF, you know, a free download. It's a Google Drive link. I always, you know, tell everyone this on every video if you're new to the channel. I'm not asking for emails. It's a really simple download. Get that, downloaded, because I'm going to provide you with all of the shapes of the pentatonic scale. So there's 5 pentatonic shapes. I am going to give you all of those so that you can play around with all of the shapes. And then ultimately, when you feel ready, you can move through all of them using this exercise, this technique. Okay? So make sure you download that PDF. And my desire is to keep everything free, for those who need a free resource and need, free information for playing guitar. I want a world of good guitar players. So if you're able to, though, in the description, I also have a link, a buy me a coffee link where you can, leave a tip or a donation or whatever in the hopes of keeping this free. But ultimately, liking and subscribing is the easiest way to, grow the channel and support the channel so that someday it's a self-supporting, self-sufficient channel. And I don't need to ask for the buy me a coffee donations and tips. Okay. That's my plug. There it is. Let's get back into exercise 3. So we're going to use that famous, pentatonic scale shape to start. And I'm keeping, everything between the 5th and 8th fret for right now. So that's the A minor pentatonic / C major pentatonic, relative major, minor, scale shapes. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through that shape and every other shape in groups of 5, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Starting on that, lowest note, moving to that second note, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, moving to the third note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, moving to the fourth note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And because it's uneven groupings, you're going down, up, 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 down, up. Okay. And this one I will show you in just a second when I'm done explaining everything. I'll show you with a metronome so that you can lock in. It might be a little different than the earlier exercises. So I'm not opposed to showing you how to do things with a metronome and stuff like that. But I just want to make sure you're locked in with these ones because it's a little different than just the, like little simple shapes and patterns. Okay. And that 5-note grouping can be a little funky as opposed to 4. Okay. So again, and obviously on screen, we've got the tabs. What I'm going to do for this exercise is just show you or just give you the shapes. So when you download the PDF, you'll just see the shapes. I could, it's not for laziness because the next exercise is going to have a very extensive, tablature associated with it. And, tab write-up, I guess you could call it. It's not for laziness. It's because I think if you really want to get familiar with these shapes, you need to see them and be able to recognize them under your fingers and then go through them in that 5-note grouping. Okay, so that you can move it, right? If you move it up 2 frets, it's B minor / D major, that shape. And you want to be able to ultimately practice this where you're kind of moving to different keys on different days, okay? So anyways, I'm just going to give you the shapes. You have to look at that shape and recognize how to do things in groups of 5. And if it makes you work mentally, it's a good thing. Right? So oftentimes I'll get a comment like, well, you need to freaking spoon feed this to me. If you want to be a great guitar player, you need to kind of have these things be automatic. And sometimes it is a mental stretch. And so you might have to go slower with your picking to interpret, get the information into your brain and put it under your fingers. But I do think that's the most helpful in the long run. All right. So that's how I'm going to give you each shape. And the way you should approach this over time. This is why 6 to 8 weeks is so important. Because some of these things just take some time to get under your fingers. So to start, if you're not super familiar with these shapes, recognize you might actually end up going slower than the, exercises you just did to get yourself here, right? The first 2 exercises, you might be going faster. You might have to slow up here because there's a pattern recognition. The 5-note grouping can be funky, yada, yada, yada. All right, so you might have to slow down as you understand and interpret the shapes and everything. Beyond that, you might want to just stick with one shape. So day one, this would be shape one, the shape I've just been showing you. Up here would be shape two. So on and so forth. And you can just run through that shape on, day two, shape three on day three, shape four on day four, and shape five on day five. All right. You can continue that, right? You might do shape one for the whole first week, right? Depending on your playing level. Okay, I just want to give you a lot of options. Ultimately, where you want to take this is, maybe you go up and down or down and up with shape one. Back down, of course. And then scooch up to shape two. So you're, one rep down and up of shape one, and then you move right to shape two. So on and so forth, down and up, shape three, down and up, shape four, down and up, yada, 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 and just run through all of the shapes in a more fluid manner. Then, in the final kind of iteration of this, the highest level, you go down. Sorry to give you, more reps of this, but I think it's really, really important. Once you get to the high E, shift up. Don't come back down on that shape, move up to the next shape. So then you'll come down in shape two. All right, then you shift up to shape three. So you're moving through all of these shapes in an even more fluid manner. And that, in my mind, would be the highest level expression, because you'd have a great understanding of how the shapes connect, and you'd be able to move through them in a fluid manner, keeping the same tempo. So what I'm gonna do now is just run through shape one so you can hear the rhythm and the cadence against a metronome. I'll do 100 BPM, I'll just say that. And then we will move into exercise four. All right, so stick with me here, and then we will get into what I think is the best exercise. All right, there it is. Moving on to exercise four. Thank you all for sticking with me. I know I give a lot of context and can be wordy, but I just think it's all important information. So hopefully those of you who stuck with me up to this point agree. And I will say on this exercise, on the last exercise, because they are so functional, because they're so applicable to your playing, I would personally bump those up to 10 minutes per exercise. So it would end up being a 30-minute session. If you don't have the time for that, that's okay. But 5 minutes on exercise one, 5 minutes on exercise two, 10 on three, and 10 on four, I think would be, chef's kiss, really excellent for your playing. But like I said, if you don't have the time, that's all right, okay? Exercise four, we're going through the major scale now, right? So we just went through the pentatonic scale, and we, had this vertical pattern of 5-note groupings. And now we're gonna have a horizontal pattern also of 5-note groupings, all right? And the 5-note grouping is just a great way, it's, this uneven, right? Picking pattern. So on the last one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've got to go back, and maintain this alternate pick, where it can trip a lot of people up, down, up, down, up, down, and then they come back, right, to down, up, down, up, down, and they keep repeating that pattern instead of down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up for eternity, okay? So it's good for that. And of course, if you're familiar with like Eric Johnson and all of the various Eric Johnson disciples out there, 5-note groupings are a big piece of them playing faster and faster and faster and faster, okay? So with that, I'm gonna show you everything on the B and high E strings, and then I will just lay it out in one big, session with the metronome, so you can, play along with it. You can adjust the setting on YouTube and, make it faster, make it slower, and then you can, take it to your own, time and place using the downloadable PDF. And this is a lot of stuff, all right? So that's why I'm gonna show you everything on part of it, take you through it, and then it'll be a play along, all right? So B and high E string. We've got this 5-note grouping and we're gonna repeat it twice. And that's gonna be the pattern in every single small shape we use. On that second repetition, so think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, we aren't going to hit that first note again. We're going to shift down and get into the next shape. And again, that's gonna be the same on every shape. Shift down. Shift down. Shift down. 2, 3, 4, and now you go to the groupings on the G and B strings. And we move our way down, and then we come back up, higher up on the fretboard, D and G strings, move our way down, then back up to A and D strings, move our way down, and then low E and A strings, move our way down. And then we restart. But again, 10 minutes will give you more reps and allow you to potentially build up speed throughout the exercise, right? The allotted time. On top of that, the multiple weeks will allow you to get familiar with all of these shapes. And, I'm gonna give you all the tabs kind of written out as you should be playing them, but I'm also gonna give you another map of the neck, right? So I'm already giving you the A minor, C major, pentatonic map of the neck, right? I'm gonna give you all 5 shapes, but I'm gonna just show you a full map of the neck using the G major scale so that you can understand why we're using these small shapes and how they fit into the larger framework of the G major scale across the neck. All right, so that ultimately you get good enough at this, you can transpose it to another key potentially, right? Move everything up 2 frets and now you're in the key of A major, okay, et cetera, et cetera. So just keep that in mind. One thing that's really important before I just show you the entire exercise from high E to low E, notice when I'm shifting, so right away in the first 2 shapes, when I shift down, I always lead with the index, right? Those first 2 notes are index and ring, but then I shift again, right? So that now the B string is being hit with my, middle and pinky, as opposed to when I started, because it'll allow me to move to that next shape more accurately. And that happens on, different string sets, right? Different, the couplets of strings, right? So it doesn't just happen on B and high E, it doesn't just happen on G and B, right? So just keep that in mind as you're shifting. Again, another reason to start slow is to make sure those transitions sound really good, because when you get into your own playing and you want to play faster, well, guess what you want? Smooth transitions as you are continuing to play fast. So you want to get that down before you bump up the speed. So if you set a 10-minute timer for this exercise, you might start at 70, 80, 90 BPM. But by the end of it, maybe you bump up a few BPM, every 2 cycles. You'll see this goes by pretty quick. And then by the end of it, certainly by the end of 6-8 weeks, you might be in the mid hundreds. There will be some of you who might be able to push it close to 200 and above. Which is pretty darn fast, all right? There's some high level people who could, potentially go much faster than that. But just to give you something to shoot for and give you hope for, that mere mortals can go fast, okay? But that's the deal. I'm gonna show you this all combined in 1 second so that you can see it. I want you to hear it, understand what's happening, but everything is in the PDF. Download the freaking PDF, please. And if you recognize how much work it took and how extensive it is, consider, leaving a little tip or donation, based on your capacity. But like I said, no pressure, because I do want this to be a really great free resource for those who want it and need it. All right, but that's the end of me talking to you. Check out exercise 4 in its entirety and then have fun with this, and I'll see you all in the next one.